Hello everyone, welcome back to Believers IAS Academy Bengaluru. This is daily news analysis session. In this session, we will be discussing some 4 to 5 important articles which are again important from UPSC prelims, mains and interview perspective. So the main article, the first article for today, that is 9th January 2025, is about sonobios. Okay, we'll see why it is in news and what are sonobios. It is in news because recently India and United States have agreed to manufacture sonobios in India itself. Okay, indigenously manufacturing of sonobios with the help of USA, which is seen as a very big step in defense indigenization or defense like reliance of India. So what are sonobios? Sonobios are advanced expandable electromechanical acoustic sensors. These are primarily sensors used for undersea domain awareness. Remember the keywords: undersea domain awareness, including the detection and tracking of submarines and ships. They play a critical role in naval anti-submarine warfare and environmental studies. Okay, so how do they work? The key features and functions include: purpose is detecting and classifying underwater sounds from ships as well as submarines. Then relay acoustic data to naval ships, aircrafts, monitoring and stations. This is the sonobios. It will either detect the like sounds from ships as well as submarines, and then it will transfer it to the like aircrafts or ships, etc., etc. It can also identify the sound from this, and it can transfer to submarines also. Okay, so this is sonobios. Deployment: it is deployed by naval helicopters or fixed wing aircraft in patterns, and then dropped in canisters that automatically activate upon hitting the water. So you can see the mechanism of canisters. As soon as they drop into the water, they open up and deploy in the water itself. Then mechanisms: an inflatable radio transmitter floats on the surface of communication. Sensors descend to a predetermined path to capture acoustic signals. Then data is transmitted back to the tracking system for analysis. Then operational modules are two types. One is active and passive. In active, it emits sound waves and analyzes echoes and targets near them. It is similar to sonars. Whereas in passive, it just listens to the sound emitted by the submarines and ships, transmitted by the ships, and transmits the data to the ships and submarines. Okay, in active, you are going to send a sound signals, and that sound signal is going to hit an object, and then it will be reverted back, and that will be studied in active. Whereas in passive, you are not going to do anything, you are just listening to the passive sound. Then special purpose bios: these, they provide environmental data such as water temperature and ambient noise levels. These are advanced, which are used for a particular special purposes. Then components are not very important, but just have a look about it. Buoyant housing, that is cylindrical or spherical structure, ensuring that it floats in the surface. And sensors are acoustic sensors, which are dropped under the water to detect the underwater signals. And then there is power source, which has batteries or energy systems for functionality, and communication system, which relays data via radio transmitters to the host platform. And then applications are: it is used in anti-submarine warfare. It can identify submarines in the underwater, and then it can target the submarines. It is identify, track and classify enemy submarines. Enhance undersea situational awareness for naval forces. And it is also used in scientific research, that is special purpose bios, super bios can be used in environmental scientific research. They can study marine life, including the whale migration and behavior. And in environmental studies, that is, it can monitor underwater environmental factors like temperature and noise. Then, so that is what India USA cooperation on sonobios. That is, recently India and USA announced the joint efforts to co-produce sonobios for Indian Navy. This initiative aims to bolster undersea domain awareness, which is aimed at ensuring maritime security. This high-end technology is expected to provide India with advanced capabilities to monitor and track submarines in deep sea and oceans. So this is the first article, very small one but very important, significant one from Indian strategic autonomy. Then second article, it is from the Hindu. It is from the editorial which talks about river linking projects. The article reads, river interlinking, the fount of environmental disasters. Okay, here they are talking about Ken Betwa interlinking project. So the article deals with Ken Betwa interlinking project or river link project. On December 25, 2024, Indian Prime Minister inaugurated Ken Betwa river link project aimed at addressing water scarcity in Uttar Pradesh and regions of Madhya Pradesh. The project involves transferring surplus water from the Ken to the drought-hit river of Betwa. Okay, both Ken and Betwa are the tributaries of Ganga river, left bank tributaries, right bank tributaries of the Ganga river. However, the concerns about the environmental and social impacts are not properly addressed, which have raised alarms, particularly regarding the submergence of Panna Tiger Reserve, which is present in Madhya Pradesh. Then, about this project and its economical and environmental cost. The project, which is costing a whopping 45,000 crores, has proceeded despite the expert objections. It overlooks the potential ecological disruptions such as the destruction of natural hydrographic systems and increased vulnerability to climate change. These factors contradict India's commitments to mitigating climate change and protecting biodiversity. And then the concept of interlinking water transfers, it is not a new phenomenon. It was first proposed in the 19th century and reintroduced as the national water grid in 1970s. Interbasin water transfer has gained momentum in India in the recent times. There have been many projects which are aimed at this interlinking project. One is the famous Ken Betwa, and then there is Krishna Godavari interlinking project. Okay, all these are also aimed at interlinking of rivers. The proponents argue that it addresses water shortages, but critics highlight the failure to account for ecological and social complexities, because it is not only the ecological effect but also the social impact. That is, if it involves rehabilitation of the people like residing in those particular areas, it is going to have social implications on that particular people, mainly tribal communities. So the global examples of mismanaged water transfers include international experiences such as Kissimmee River, not Kissimmee River, it is a Kissimmee River, channelization in Florida, and RLC crisis in Central Asia illustrate the ecological disasters caused by altering the river system. These examples underscores the risk of large-scale water transfer projects. Okay, this Kissimmee River for channelization was in Florida. Initially, there were channels were like connected to a river Kissimmee, where the river was diverted to drought-hit areas of Florida. But over the years, this Kissimmee River has seen reduced water flows because of the change in the course, because of the excessive channelization of the river. Similarly, the Aral Sea has also been in the crisis recent times because of the similar to river linking projects. The rivers which were filling into the Aral Sea were diverted for other reasons. As a result, the Aral Sea is shrinking from time to time. Then, so despite that, we have to understand the ecoservices of rivers. That is, rivers such as free-flowing rivers provide essential ecosystem services, including maintaining soil fertility, biodiversity, and groundwater recharge. Therefore, we should leave them to be in their natural flow itself. That is, diverting this river water disrupts these services, potentially harming the livelihoods and aggravating environmental problems. Then, India's water crisis and the root solutions. So instead of looking for this river linking project, we can find for some other reasons or some other solutions for this one. That is, India's water crisis stems from poor management, pollution, and overexploitation. This is the areas where we can focus on. That is, we can manage it more efficiently. We can stop the rivers from getting polluted. We can stop the rivers from getting overexploited. In that way, we can reduce the water crisis in India. Instead of going for the extravagant river linking project, we can go for these smaller solutions, which needs sustainable strategies, including better irrigation practices and decentralized water management, which offer viable alternatives to large-scale interlinking projects. Then, conclusion. So the author says that there is a need for holistic and sustainable solutions. The editorial warns against the political and economical push for interlinking rivers without considering its long-term environmental cost. Instead, it advocates for innovative region-specific water management strategies that prioritizes sustainability and local stakeholder involvement rather than extravagant interlinking projects. Okay, very important. So you can expect a question from this one either in mains or an interview also, because since it has been like inaugurated recently, though the news has been a old one, but it has been inaugurated recently. So there can be a question in your interview also. So use this substantive point for enhancing your answers. Then moving on to the third article, which is again an editorial from the Hindu, which talks about China's long game in Africa. Okay, very important topic, especially for students with PSI or optional. So China's long game in Africa. So author is Samir Bhattacharya, who is the associate fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. He talks about how China played its part in Africa. In introduction, it talks about China's recent establishments in Africa. That is, in 2022, China established its second political training school in Tanzania, named the Mwalimu Julius Nyerere Leadership School. Okay, peep into the school type. The school is second political training school, and it was named after Tanzanian leader, that is Mwalimu Julius Nyerere Leadership School. The school, costing around $40 million, aims to train future African political leaders in the Chinese Communist Party principles of governance. Okay, very significant, because they are not only helping the Africans in gaining the education, they are also propagandizing their own ideals. This is what USA used to practice before. USA used to aid certain countries and they used to preach the principles of democracy to those countries. Now China is doing the same thing. China is training the African political leaders in the future on the principles of Communist Party of China. Okay, it is a part of China's broader strategies to shape Africa's political landscape and promote governance models centered around strong ruling parties. Okay, so since Chinese Communist Party, it is unitary in nature, there is literally no democracy in China, just it is there for no namesake only. So China is promoting similar political parties, ruling parties in the rest of the world also. Here, the historical context of China and Africa includes China's engagement in African politics dates back to its support for independence movements in countries such as South Africa, Mozambique, Angola, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania. Even India was also involved in supporting the independence movement, but China, after creating a soft power in these things, has substantiated this soft power with the debt trap policy, that is the hard power. Then, many leaders from these countries were educated in China, fostering long-term ties. Okay, this is the aspect which India is lacking right now. Okay, China is not only helping them, China is helping them with some sort of return for themselves. Okay, then by creating institutions like leadership schools, China strengthens governance capacity and promotes relationships based on shared educational and ideological resources. Okay, just see the difference. China has created or established a political training college or political training school in Tanzania, whereas India, the country is the same, but the institution India established in Tanzania was IIT, that is Indian Institute of Technology. See the differences here. Both are good things only. Okay, both are promoting education of different kinds. But whereas this one, it has implications on China itself, because they are being trained on the principles of China's or Communist Party's principles. Here, you are providing education on the technological and scientific basis. Although it is a good move, but it is not propagating any ideals of India there. Okay, that is the difference between measures or steps taken by India and China, you can say. Then, so it is nothing but game of influence in Africa now. That is, China's strategy in Africa is about more than just economic or military strength. It focuses primarily on diplomacy, that is, acting as a mediator in disputes such as those in the Niger, Benin, and Saudi Arabia, Iran cases, and political engagement, that is, establishing strong ties with the ruling parties to stabilize governance and promote Chinese models. Okay, then China's political and economic strategy, it was mainly in infrastructure investments. That is, China uses its economic might through its debt trap policy or checkbook policy. It is trying to invest in infrastructure. It is China funds projects across Africa, such as Kenya's foreign ministry headquarters and the renovation of Zimbabwe's Herbert Chipto School of Ideology. See the schools of ideology, foreign ministry headquarters. Even the investments in infrastructure is also aimed at helping China itself. Then, political training schools. These institutions aim to shape African elites and promote Sino-centric worldview. Sino, in the sense China. So, what USA used to do, that is democracy at the forefront. Like US-centric worldview was there in the before. That is what it propagated in South Americas and European countries, and later to Asia as well. Now China is doing the reverse by propagating Sino-centric worldview in African countries. Then cultural and educational exchanges. That is, hundreds of African officials attend Chinese programs to learn governance practices and traditions. Whenever they attend China or visit China, and they are going to learn about the traditions of Chinese, and then they come back and propagate the ideas of China itself. Then, what about China's diplomacy in India? So, China's diplomacy is mainly built on the decades of patient diplomacy. Okay, they didn't hurry anything. Goals included promoting a Sino-centric world order and maintaining the influence in Africa's political transitions. By supporting both ruling and opposition parties, China ensures its long-term interests are protected in case of political shifts. Okay, this is an area where India can improve, because recent example of India Out campaign. Okay, India Out campaign in Maldives was the result of the opposition parties which saw India as an enemy. Okay, the India was a supporter of ruling party there. Ruling party had a good relations with India. Like the Maldives relations was very good, but as soon as the government was changed, the opposition party started the India Out campaign. As a result, India almost lost its soft power which it built over years of like many years. Okay, and then so the conclusion here is China's long-term strategy in Africa combines economic investments, political training, and diplomatic influence. By focusing on relationships with ruling elites and fostering governance stability, China seeks to reshape global governance systems with Africa as a key partner. Then, this approach highlights the effectiveness of building relationships through the infrastructure, education, and ideological element. Okay, India can take a leaf out of China's policy and implement itself in its own foreign policy. Okay, then moving on to the next article, it is from the Indian Express again. Sorry, the Hindu again. It talks about increasing center share in the states' revenues. So the article reads about over the past decade, that is from financial year 16 to 25, states' dependence on the centers for transfers and grants has increased significantly. We will see why it is so, and we also see what are the implications of depending on the center. in the last decade, 23 to 30% of total state revenue came from the center as transfers. Dependency has grown due to falling efficiency in collecting their own taxes and declining non-tax revenue. Because of the GST, many of the states had to forego their own taxation powers. As a result, the revenue has been reduced on the state side. So more states are now dependent on the center for the grants. Then, so it talks about trends in the state revenue sources. That is, there are own tax sources as well as non-tax revenue. That is, states' own tax revenue as a share of total revenue has decreased over the years. This can be mainly attributed to the loss of taxation powers due to GST. So it was higher in the 2000s and early 2010s, but has steadily declined. Tamil Nadu, for instance, saw its own tax revenue to GDP ratio drop from 7.72% to 6.22% in the last 10 years. Then, non-tax revenue sources such as dividends, interest receipts, and public sector enterprises earnings have also reduced over the period of time. So both the resources of states are reducing and the transfer from the center is increasing. That is, share of grants from center has increased from 55 to 60% in the 15 years before financial 16 to 65 to 70% in the last decade. Okay, almost a 10% increase in the grant from states to center to states. Then GST implementation has contributed to this dependency also. That is, state goods service tax, which accounted for 15% of the state's own tax revenue, was replaced several states level taxes. Okay, so these are the reasons why states are more dependent on the center, and center's contribution or grants in states revenue is increasing. Then there is also diminishing efficiency in revenue collection. That is, states have failed to innovate or adopt efficient mechanisms to enhance revenue collection. The earnings from service sectors or public sectors like public health and economic services remain below 30%. Then non-tax revenues such as stamp duty and dividends have not improved in the previous years. And there are certain charts which shows the recent changes. That is, diminishing states' own revenues. The non-tax revenues have diminished from 29% to 23%, and states share in central taxes is also central taxes increasing, and own tax revenue is also decreasing for most of the states. Then the another graph talks about share of states SGST and own tax revenue without SGST in their total revenue. Okay, OTRS minus SGST is reducing. OTR, that is own tax revenue with SGST, is higher. So whenever you are removing states GST, the own tax revenue is on the lower side of the stratum. Then chart 3 talks about detailed split of states non-tax revenue. Again, so first one is dividends from the profits and interest payments. It is also reducing from 9 to 3%, and then earnings from the services has also decreased from 36 to 31%, whereas grant from the centers has increased from 54 to 64%. Then it shows certain states, the ratio of states' own tax revenue to the GDP in the financial year 17, 21, 24. So here you can see that Tamil Nadu, it has gone on decreasing from 7.72% to 6.1%. Even in Karnataka, it has gone decreasing from 7.69% to 6.29%. Bihar, Delhi, Kerala, and Madhya Pradesh, all the states have shown that the states' ratio of the state's own tax revenue to their GDP is decreasing over the period of 10 years. Okay, and also its impact. Okay, the impact of this is economical impact of depending on central grants is that it is increasing the reliance on center. Obviously, states' dependence on the center undermines the fair fiscal autonomy. Grants and transfer from the center often come with conditionalities, which is impacting states' flexibility in the resource allocation. Then declaring the fiscal federalism, that is, a growing reliance on central funds highlights the challenges of macroeconomic stability and the need for states to enhance their fiscal policies. And so what are the challenges and the recommendations according to this article is, Challenges are over-reliance on center can lead to weakening of fiscal federalism, declining in revenue autonomy, and limited capacity to address regional issues independently. Whenever you want to address regional issues, now you are dependent on the center's grants, which reduces the strategic autonomy also. So recommendations is states should focus more on improving tax collection mechanisms and broadening the tax base and enhancing non-tax revenue sources like public sector earnings, revisiting policies to boost fiscal self-reliance and reduce dependency on the central funds. These can be some of the areas where state can work on, so that they are not more dependent on center's grant for their own revenues. So very important, do make note of these key points, that is diminishing states like states own tax revenue to their GDP, and increasing central grants to say states and their percentage to GDP. All these things can be used as your substantive points whenever there is a question on federalism or something. Then the final article for today is about rat hole mining, which there has been a tragedy in Assam recently. There was an article in the Hindu today that they were able to rescue 2 people, but still many people are trapped under stuff. So it is in news because a tragic incident occurred in Assam's Dima Hasao district, where a flooded coal rat hole mine trapped 9 workers, resulting in 3 confirmed deaths. The Indian Navy's deep sea divers are assisting in the rescue operations. Okay. Then the Assam Chief Minister revealed that the mine appears to be illegal, reflecting the challenges of regulating such activities in regions with extensive coal and quarrying operations. Okay, see, workers are already trapped under the rat hole, and on top of that, the rat hole mining itself is illegal. So that is the state of affairs in certain states and in India. So what do you mean by rat hole mining then? In definition, a rat hole mining is primitive and hazardous method of extracting coal from narrow streams, mainly practiced in Meghalaya and parts of Northeast India. And then miners dig narrow vertical pits, often just large enough to one person to descend. So it will be like this. So this will be the opening, and below this there will be large mine. Okay, below this there will be large mine, and only one person can go inside this rat hole mine. Okay, and once one person is gone, then another person will be descending. But in case there is a flood, all the water will be coming into the same hole. As a result, many people will be get trapped. It is actually illegal, but is still practiced in India. That is the sorry state of affairs. Using ropes or bamboo landers, mines access coal seams, extract coal manually with tools like pickaxes, shovels, and bring it to the surface in baskets. Okay, it is almost similar to what we see in KGF 1 and KGF 2, how they were made to go underground and then mine for the gold. Here you will be mining for the coal. So there are many types of rat hole mining. One is side cutting method, that is narrow tunnels are horizontally cut along the hill slopes. Workers follow the seams until the coal is found, and which is mainly common in Meghalaya, where seams are less than 2 meter thick. Okay, only one person can be sent through these seams. Second one is box cutting method, that is there will be a rectangular opening of around 10 to 100 square kilometers is made, followed by a vertical pit that can reach up to 100 to 400 feet deep. Once coal is found, horizontal tunnels are dug to extract the coal. Okay, it is nothing but normally if there is a mine under the land, most of the times what happens here is you are going to mine the whole area and bring out the minerals. Whereas in rat hole mining, instead of mining from the top, you are going to straightly mine the area from the bottom. Okay, because coal is not found at the surface level, it is found mainly at the deeper level. Okay, so that is why they tend to do these methods, which is illegal as well as very dangerous for people working there. So what are the hazards of rat hole mining? One is safety concern, that is there is no proper ventilation will be there. There is no structural support or safety measures for the people working there, and frequent accidents involve flooding, landslides, and fatalities. This has been the case since ages. And its environmental impact include land degradation and deforestation due to unregulated digging, water pollution as acidic drainage from the mines contaminates the local water bodies, and it also has socio-economic challenges. That is, the practice persists even after becoming illegal due to economic necessity of the impoverished areas. Due to the economic necessity of the impoverished areas, because they don't have any access to economy or livelihoods apart from these areas, they are bound to, or they are forced by their economic conditions to work in these areas. And then the lack of alternative livelihoods forces communities to engage in these risky practices. And there is also regulatory issues, because these operate illegally, they evade government oversight and it becomes very difficult to regulate them. Then regulatory measures fail to stop the practice, especially in remote regions. So there has been a ban on rat hole mining by the NGT. NGT in 2014 banned rat hole mining. That is, the National Green Tribunal banned rat hole mining in 2014, stating that there are numerous fatalities, especially during the monsoons. It is also severe environmental degradation caused by unregulated practices. And there is a special focus on Meghalaya, because rat hole mining was widespread in Meghalaya, leading to specific enforcement of ban in the state. And Meghalaya's government challenged the NGT's order in the Supreme Court. However, Supreme Court is yet to declare on this case. The key takeaways are, it still persists because of the economic dependency of local communities, lack of viable job alternatives in the mining regions, and weak enforcement of regulations. So what should be the way forward? Way forward should focus on strengthening the regulation and enforcement of those regulations. Just bringing regulations is not enough. You should enforce those regulations. How you can enforce is by increasing surveillance and penalties for illegal mining operations. Ensure compliance with the safety and environmental norms, and then promoting alternative livelihoods. How you are going to promote alternative livelihoods? By implementing welfare schemes for providing sustainable employment for affected communities. Then environmental rehabilitation include initiating the land restoration and water decontamination programs, and then there should also be public awareness campaigns, that is, educating the local communities about the hazards of rat hole mining and available government assistance. Okay, only then we will be able to address this menace of rat hole mining. So this is about today's news analysis. If you have any doubts, you can write in the comment box. Then if you like the video, then please hit the like button, comment on the video, and also share with your friends. With this, I will end the video. Jai Hind.